What's up guys, Deroir here. So I just kind of wanted to talk about the 5th and newest episode, Flashpoint. The content, the map, the lore, generally just the things that got me really excited about the episode. Now, I'll preface this real quickly that there is going to be sporadic spoilers all over the place. So if you don't want anything spoiled, especially not story-wise, probably just come back later. Now, surprisingly enough, there was actually a lot of things in this update that got me really excited, even though they were just smaller things. The first thing I did when I opened the game after the update was to deposit all of the living story materials, since they can now be deposited to the bank. This small, tiny update to the game was so relieving to me. Now, obviously, the pinnacle of this update was, to me at least, the legendary armor, or the release of it. We've now been working for a year and a half, almost 2 years, for this moment. So the second thing I did was to rush right into the Bastion of the Penitent to craft my final armor. Now, there's been a lot of discussions about the looks of the armor, especially the medium and light version. But personally, I couldn't have been more happy with how the heavy armor looks. It is the armor I have always wanted for my Guardian. Now, I've always tried to go for a Guardian Angel kind of theme for my Guardian, and this armor just took that to a whole nother level. The super intricately detailed heavy armor design with sprouting wings when you draw it just made me so happy. Now, I don't really know at this time whether I want to actually craft the light or medium armor, since that would just be for convenience sake. The medium armor classes I do tend to use quite a lot, but the look of the armor just does not really talk to me, in a positive sense that is. I have, however, heavily considered just crafting another heavy set, but we'll see. All that said though, I am just so happy we even have the opportunity to craft it now. It's been a long and hard journey, but finally we can all get our legendary armors now. Whether you like the armor or not, whether you're a veteran raider or not, it doesn't really matter. The main important thing is that we now have the armor in the game. You now have that goal to work towards, and that alone is so important for this game. But enough about the armor, but still on the topic though. After the armor, I did decide to immediately go and craft the new legendary torch, the Flames of War, even though I really don't like the look of it. But to me at least, the look of a legendary isn't necessarily the most important thing. To me at least, it comes down to legendaries being best in slot. And I think that when we're talking about legendary armor, it's important to take away from it that the look of it isn't necessarily the ultimate aspect of having the legendary. Obviously, that comes down to the individual, but whatever. This is how I feel. And so I crafted the Flames of War, and I ran around with it for like a day or something before I actually reskinned it, just to get the feel of it. The thing is, even though the Flames of War skin itself looks kinda meh, the draw effect and the arm effect is just astoundingly awesome. It's just one giant flaming explosion around your character. That said though, the projectile that you have for the weapon, at least for Guardian, is just the weapon. There's no fire, there's no nothing, it's just a flying candlestick. So yeah, that's a little weird. Alright, toys out of the way, let's talk about the map. Draconis Mons is giant, and it is so intricately detailed and well designed. Not just visually, but the event structure is absolutely amazing. Now, this is especially where we start getting into spoiler territory. So lore-wise, as we enter, we realize that we're inside a hollowed out volcano. Lore-wise, the creation of this area seems to be a culmination of a lot of different factors. So the way that this seems to have been created is that underneath the volcano, Primordus is sleeping, and because his presence is so hot, he heats up the water vapor rises up and creates a cloud layer inside the hollow. Now, because of the temperature differences, you basically have a perfectly contained pocket environment where the bottom is just lush forest area, while above the clouds you still have this volcanic environment. Now, it seems that because of this, the druids have decided, or at least they believe that Melandru, the god of nature, have decided that this area should be one of Melandru's gardens. They basically refer to it as this untainted, perfect environment. Now the dilemma for the druids seems to then have been that back in the days of Guild Wars 1, the Asura Sin came to the island and tried to establish Rada Arcanum. This, we learn, takes place after the fall of Rada Novus, where 98% of its inhabitants died. And so what Sin did was that he tried to terraform this entire area to his liking so that he could build Rada Arcanum. But obviously the druids did not like that. And so inevitably they clashed. Now I haven't been through all of Sin's lost recordings, but some of it is really interesting to go through. Basically, it tells about how Sin tried to enslave the druids against their will to terraform the environment for him. This is why we find that during the story we have to go out and release these druids. Now there are hundreds of things to notice around this map, all of which I am not going to go through here. I am, however, going to point out that apparently there's a spelling mistake on Sin's grave. Contrary to Sin's exploitation of the druids, it seems that the player character is much more understanding of the druids' situation. There's specifically a series of achievements that touch on this. The entire creation of the Druid Stone. Basically, this chain and collection of achievements asks you to do different things for the druids and understand where they come from, listen to their stories. Coincidentally, this is where most of the replayability for this entire map comes from, since some of the things that you have to get are daily gated. One of the scenarios that stuck out to me most was the Wartburg. It's one of the bosses on the map, which is an angered druid spirit that tries to destroy the pact, basically. Before and after you fight him, the pact soldiers around are rather apologetic to the situation, but still he decides to fight you. Now, by defeating the Wartburg, you extract the element of the Wartburg which you bring to Kodama, another one of the druids, who basically tells you about the anger that some of the druid spirits have here and that they aren't all aligned in that anger. Long story short, I can really recommend you guys read all of the lines of dialogue that you have with the druids. It gives you a much better and bigger perspective about the quest that the druids go through here. Story aside, one of the absolute coolest things on this map is the new mastery. The Oakheart's Reach is so fun to use. Now, initially when you enter Draconis Mons, most of the map will feel really inaccessible and hard to reach, and you're walking for so long distances. But basically, when you've mastered the entire Ancient Magics tree, your entire experience of this map completely changes. The layout of this map is so greatly designed that with the masteries at hand, you can now travel great distances in no time. Also, one of the absolute best things about this mastery is that you can actually purchase the pots to place in your guild hall. Farming the fire orchids necessary for these decorations is going to be the death of me. Having the pots of Oakheart's Reach in your guild hall located all over the place is going to completely revolutionize the way that you see your guild hall. Now, funnily enough, you can easily break out to the edges of the maps in the guild halls, but Draconis Mons was designed to completely encapsulate the players so as you couldn't break out of the map. Because with the Oakheart's Reach, you have such an easy time just getting to the very top of the map in no time and with no effort. All in all, Draconis Mons is probably one of my favorite maps in the entire season here. Only kind of beaten by Bitterfrost Frontier, but that's because I have a thing for snowy mountain areas. Alright, so to round this video off, I kind of want to talk about Lazarus. Right, before the trailer, I didn't really think there'd be too much focus on Lazarus's identity, but then the trailer kind of just brought all of it out into the open, right? And put a huge spotlight on who is Lazarus. And so I thought, well, we kind of know that we're heading towards the desert, so possibly it's Kralkatoric or Gleam, or I was actually suspecting it to be just nothing and he'd be a good guy. But then out of nowhere, Balthasar drops into the fucking game. Completely honest, I dropped my jaw. I had no idea how to react to that. I had not seen that a mile away. The thing was, like, theoretically, the gods could have been a good suggestion as to who Lazarus might be, but ArenaNet have always kept the gods so locked away in their own little box, right? not willing to share any details about the gods. And so for me to see the actual human god of war in the game, I completely lost it. Now at first I was really skeptical. The human gods, really, this is where we're going? But then I thought to myself, this is exactly what the Guild Wars 2 story needs. Because the introduction of the gods opens up endless possible situation going forth. Roads that we have not dared hope for. For so long now, the community has complained that the villains of this game, the Elder Dragons, are nothing more than evil natural forces. They have no real characteristics, no real motive, they just eat, kill, sleep, and that's it. The gods, however, and especially given the way that Balthazar is presented to us, seem much more akin to, say, Greek mythology and their gods, where we see much more human characters. With the gods, we have the possibility of getting villains or combatants with much more depth to their character than elder dragons made out of fire and rock. In fact, we have several years worth of character building already established in the game. They are mythic creatures from the mists, known back from the original game. All the stories, all the lore, how much of it is actually real? How much of it is just myth, and which stories do we not know yet? Or which sides to the stories do we not know yet? A long time ago, I put forth the idea that Abaddon, the bad guy in the Nightfall series in the first games, the God of Secrets, perhaps wasn't so bad after all. Potentially, he forewarned the gods of the Elder Dragon's existence to no avail, and instead decided to give the humans the tools, or magic in particular, necessary to combat the dragons on their own, all this leading to a war between the gods, ultimately imprisoning Abaddon. Right, but for what crime? Was it that he tried to save Tyria, or was it that he tried to save humanity perhaps? If you want to know more about my earlier thoughts, which to this day I still stand by firmly, you can check out my video on the Eternal Alchemy in the description down below. Now, given that we were kind of thrown into this chapter of the story involving freaking gods, of course there's 100 different questions floating around, such as, where are the rest of the gods? I mean, we saw Lys's Mira, that was the one that concealed Balthazar's true identity, but are they working together, or did he just steal it? Also, why just Balthazar? And how did Balthazar actually come into the story? I mean, I get the whole Lazarus illusion and stuff, but why did he have to go to such lengths to get himself to Tyria? Have the gods been locked away somewhere? Do they not have enough magic? Are they unable to enter the Tyrian realm unless they're summoned somehow? Also, listen to this real quick.
Balthazar, what you're doing, you'll destroy Tyria.
Your home is a trivial concern. They have beaten me, dimmed my light, but they will see me now.
Who are they? Is he referring to the Elder Dragons, as they were the cause for the gods to take flight from Tyria, or is he referring to the other gods? He is, after all, just referring to himself in this sentence, and not all the gods as a collective entity. Also, why does he not care about Tyria, or your home, as he puts it? If I were to guess at some of this, I believe the gods were slowly but steadily weakened by the presence of the Elder Dragons. Being on Tyria, the gods were vulnerable to the magical siphoning from the dragon's presence. And so either they fled from Tyria, or they just phased out of reality because they didn't have the magical energy to sustain their presence? I don't know. Either way, it seems as though a giant magical boost was needed for just one god to enter the Tyrian realm, the Bloodstone explosion being one such thing. Now, having come back, it seems that all Balthazar wants is revenge, no matter the cost. To him, a Mistwalker able to pass through reality and enter all worlds, Tyria may just be a speck to him in the grand scheme of things. Even though I've previously heavily theorized that if Tyria falls, all of the Eternal Alchemy might fall into chaos as well. Either way, we don't really know much. This is untouched territory. We've mostly dealt with theories about what would happen if the Elder Dragons were to die and Tyria would fall into chaos, though a lot of us have wanted to see the gods for such a long time or just hear anything more about them. This is still the first time we've ever seen a god in person. And so many theoretical aspects of the story has to be revisited now. And so I, for one, cannot wait to see where this story is headed. I am expecting quite a spectacle for the final episode of the season. As a final note, just something I found to be really entertaining to consider. In this episode, we get to see an elder dragon. We get to see the dragon of fire, Primordus, or at least part of him. We get to see his giant head, and he's fucking huge. Now, just seeing him, I quickly realized he was too big to really visualize. And so I tried to look up head to body ratio of things like lizards. And so I realized that relative to the size of his head, Primordus' body should take up approximately this entire area of space. Not counting in the length of a potential tail, that is, unless we assume he's more like a turtle shape, but who really knows. So yeah, that's just something for you to consider, really. Primordus went back to sleep anyways, so it's not like we'll likely get a chance actually to see him, though I was super excited to actually get to see him. The story of Primordus, however, seems to kinda have come to a stalemate here, unfortunately. But Jormak, well, supposedly he should be sleeping too now. But I, for one, will get really disappointed if we don't get to at least see the ice serpent. It would be really cool if, against what we're expecting, he just goes nope to Timy's machine and then goes all murderous. After all, Braum needs a resolution to his quest, right? Saying that out loud, I hope that Braum doesn't get to kill Jormak off screen just to be all boasty and childish about it. Oh, please, though. Anyway, all in all, this episode has really lit a spark in my mind for potential theories about where the story is headed and the general lore of Tyria. Unfortunately, it'll still be just a little while till the next Mind Spike episode comes out. I know it's been a while, but given that I'm in the closing stages of writing my bachelor thesis, I hope you guys will bear with me. So for now, that's all I had for you guys this time. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, I'll see you in the mists.
You